My presentation actually more dovetails better with what we are discussing this morning. Some of the challenges that we are facing in terms of operations and so if you look at the pictures, two pictures there, they sort of tell two different stories. If you look at the top picture, you can see the plots not look very well organized and they are weedy. Then at the bottom, you can see nice pathways, very few weeds, if any. That's where we are trying to move to. So if you look at, that's the current state. So, and that's reflected as a result of the way we are organized in that each program within IITA, the 6 programs, each of the programs has got an independent operation. So there's our own thing. There is very little interaction, and those are some of the things that we are talking about, and it's reflected in those pictures there. The fields and the growth facilities are managed and maintained by RFU, so there's no communication again, coordination. The resources are managed by the programs except fallow fields. So in this case, when I'm talking about the resources, I'm talking about things like the weeding, the herbicides, the fertilizer. And we're trying to move to a state where things are coordinated, they are centrally planned, and we have a team approach, and maybe impose our activities on the crop calendars. And also we can keep the field history to ensure that we sustain the fields long term. Next slide. Oh, this is going to be painful. Okay, there. So this is the way the structure is within IITA currently. It's sort of it's not a full picture, but at least it paints the idea of how we are structured within IITA. So you can see on the left, we have Wilson there was reporting direct to the director, and then under him we had farm assistants and superintendents, and then growth facilities and the mechanic. And then on the right, you have the breeders, and plant breeders, they will be different. So there will be cassava, there will be maize, soybean, cowpeas, and those who are reporting direct, the breeders direct to the director. In this case, Michael, who is the head director for the West Hub. And then under him, under the breeders, okay. Under the breeders, we have the field technicians and international. What's your title again, Peter? Yeah, so he reports direct to the breeder, and then seed processing was also independent, and the breeders were managing that. So with this structure, it manifests of communication among the various teams. There are silos. We spoke about that this morning. There is a poor or lack of mechanization in terms of seed and harvesting, and part of that is because we don't pool our resources together. Is it me? Oh, on my laptop? Oh. Okay, I'll do that. Is that better? Yeah, so lack of mechanization, seeding, harvest, and harvesting. And like I was saying, part of that is because each program actually runs its own, it's got its own equipment. There is no sharing. And the fact that we can't put our funds together, we can't afford to buy equipment. And then again, because of the silos, equipment is not ready on time. So sometimes a technician might need something from Wilson. It might not be ready because we don't have enough equipment to go around. Funds are not readily available for routine operations. And usually the operations in the field are driven by cost saving, because each program wants to save money, right? So they might have a problem with weeds, but they don't want to spend because it's costly. So it's not data driven. And then just unplanned and non-uniform application of inputs. There is no systematic approach to how we apply we spoke about that this morning, how we apply the herbicides or fertilizers. And then we just don't have a proper HSE policy in place. Again, because of the fragmentation, each program runs its own thing. Like when I came here last year, Peter was running his own. I'll shut this down. Peter had a program where he's doing PPE and herbicide applications. But I was expecting that maybe the other programs would work with him, but actually they were not. So he was the only one who was running that program. I didn't see a similar training from the other crops. So if we are all under one umbrella, like we could do that where everybody comes together and we provide such kind of training. Next slide, boss. So some of the current challenges that we are facing as a result of that structure that I showed. So in terms of field management, so we have a silos approach. Breeding programs, farm and facility operate independently. Management and coordination of allocation of resources is not coordinated. Weed management, pest management is uncoordinated. Same for food preparation. It's intensive because we don't work together again. As a result of that, what we've seen, once we go out in the field, you see most of our soils are low in organic matter because of intensive operations and none of coordination. There's no systematic crop rotation implemented. We continuously crop our fields and no standardized approach to seed production across all the programs. Next slide. Okay, so continuing with the challenges, you can see again the field there are lots of weeds, which could be confounding the results from this trial, right? We don't know whether the varieties are performing bad because of the weeds or because of lack of moisture, or it's just the varietal expression. So poor experimental design, we're not taking into consideration the spatial variability when we are laying out these fields. Incorrect plot preparation, coordination, random assignment of fields. We talked about that. Wilson was talking about people not filling in the forms properly, so that hampers how he's going to allocate the fields. The allocation of the growth facilities is not streamlined. There is no systematic crop rotation implemented. Next slide. So same thing for seed and material processing. We don't have proper equipment in place. The dryers are not working properly. In some cases, when we had that discussion, there's no proper conditioning. Like I didn't hear anyone talk about fumigation. Storage, we need to do some work there. And then actually, to be honest, this varies across the crops and herbs. Like if you go in Lusaka, I think in Zambia, they have it's a little more structured than when you come maybe to Nigeria, or, I mean to Ibadan or Kano. The workflow, the SOPs are not properly consolidated, so each one is using their own SOPs. There's no continuous improvement implemented. Seed processing challenges, we still using harvesting by hand. We don't have any equipment. Similarly, we are threshing by hand. In most cases anyways. And this is going to vary again between the crops, like RTB has got their own issues, soybean has got its own issue. Sorting, storage is an issue, packaging is an issue, and labeling, we are moving in a good direction in that with the help of EIB, we've got some code readers, and we're starting to move in the direction of where we are using digitized labeling. So again, you look at that picture, this is how we are storing. This is actually real, this is here. This is how we store the seed. So you can see, like when Amir and I went there, we were asking us, how would you get behind, like to try and retrieve something? And some of this material has been there for years, right? So, and there is no environmental control, so they don't know at what temperature they storing the seed. There is no efficient use of space, as you can see there. There's also some security issues in that if something went wrong, there wouldn't be any alarm that would go off to alert anybody. And it's just not safe to look at that. Sending somebody in that facility would be is risky. And people are just not provided the proper training to realize that they should be handling the seed storage much better than this. Next slide. So what can we do to make some changes? Part of this is that we have to start at making some changes to the organization structure. Like I said before, the breeders were reporting direct to the director, and then the technicians were reporting direct to the breeders. So what we're trying to do is to separate the breeding aspect from operations. So on the right hand side, and this is a simplified version of the organization structure. So on the left side, we have the breeders reporting to the head of breeding, in this case, John Derera, and he's got 2 product managers. And then there are some other services that we are not sure where to move them, and we don't want to do that very quickly because I think we have to phase things in. So things like virology, biometrics will still remain on the left side, but eventually I think things will move to the right. So then on the right side, it's head of farm management and breeding operations, reporting direct to the director and having strong link with the head of breeding. And under that, we have breeding operations. So we have different teams, like people like Teresa and Peter will be working with me. We might retain some of the technical people where they will stay with the breeders, so that they will be liaising between the left and the right. So then we have the farm and field management, which will be mainly the farm managers that you met today. And then we'll have seed and material handling will be under breeding operations and controlled environments, greenhouses and glass houses. Then also we want to, because we're getting in new equipment, we want to strengthen the position of mechanic. So we're looking to bring in a new mechanic who's at least got some training in heavy duty machinery, especially farm equipment. And then for HSC, even though it's showing there, it won't be a position per se, but sort of we're looking to create some committees at all the stations. But that would be working directly with myself. So what are the benefits of having such a structure in place? Of course, the breeders will be more focused on doing what they are good at in terms of methodology and strategy, and also resource mobilization. The processes will be standardized and will be more focused on the methodology. And also, this is also a good opportunity for most of the technical people in that it's going to, we're going to open up new skills for them. So it's providing a career path for most of our people. And then developing specialized teams with better skill sets that can move across the different programs, work with different crops. So they are not necessarily just linked to one crop. And of course, continuous improvement. Most of the people that from IITA that are here actually are going through, actually all of you are going through this continuous improvement training. So it's going to be part of, for lack of a better term, of our DNA, so to speak. And also quality assurance. So next slide, yeah. So again, just focusing on the benefits. This will be more result-based management, and communication will improve amongst the different programs. So, like we're saying, people will be able to communicate more effectively with the farm manager and the programs. We will have a one-team approach. So we have these regular meetings, like I was saying this morning, where we meet every year. Before the season, we discuss what's going to happen. When we're developing the protocols, we actually include the technicians and the farm managers so that we have different aspects of or rather we look at things from different perspectives before we install the trials. And of course, this is going to speed up the delivery of results to the breeders. and then continuous improvement, like I said before. And just because we are pulling our resources together, this is also going to reduce the cost of doing what we're doing. Now, next slide. Okay, so some of the things we are doing just to improve the delivery of results to the scientists is to improve the management of the fields. So it will be like I asked this question: do you guys just use literature rates for fertilizer? I think I'm of the opinion that we should be doing frequent soil analysis and base the fertilization on the recommendations. And also maybe make some changes in terms of land orientation, so that you have a grid system. It's easy, I think, to keep track of what's going on and to allocate plots. And then we're also working on just making some improvements in irrigation. This is the banana plantation. We just had this installed last year. Drip irrigation, we've had some issues, but at least we are moving in the right direction. And then on top of that, I think when he was going through the CTEH funding there, he spoke about installing irrigation at Chikene and Kanu. So we are going in that direction. For Ibadan, we've held that back because if we go out, when you see the fields, they are undulating a lot, and in my opinion, they are not receptive to a new system in terms of irrigation. And then weed management, if we can be more proactive and have an integrated approach, and also making sure that it's like if we have it under one umbrella, I think it's going to be easier instead of leaving it up to the technicians to manage weeds. We'll have a team that's going to be looking after weed management. That way, it's going to be more consistent, and then we will be able to keep the history of what was applied to which field, so that we don't run into issues of weed resistance or residue issues. So this is just the breeding operation teams that will be forming. Their responsibilities will include, of course, seeding and maintenance, of course, phenotyping and data collection, harvesting, processing the data for sending to the breeders, and seed processing for research plots. And then the other thing is that there are some concerns with some of the breeders that, well, how are you going to do this, given that the people that you are bringing on might not know what we do, like only Peter is conversant with technical work with respect to cassava, but we are saying that no, we are actually not bringing in new people. We're just reallocating remapping the technicians. So it's the same people that have been doing this will continue doing it, but in a more organized and systematic way. Okay, next slide. And again, this slide just is an overview of the teams that will be involved. So the RTB, root tubers, and banana support teams will be involved in nursery operations, testing operations, and also just something for genotyping and phenotyping, and also RGA for legumes, RTB, and maize. Next slide. So similar thing for the raw crops. It just mimics the last slide. Next one. So this is an example of a well-organized facility, at least in Zambia, compared to what you saw previously, right? Like it's open space. I mean, there's a lot to be done, but I think we are moving in the right direction in the case of Zambia. So, like you can see, the storage is well organized. Everything is bar-coded. Like you have the table there for sorting. It's nice and clean. The floor is marked out nicely. So we are moving in that direction. We want to implement that at all these stations. Next slide. This is Zambia, Lusaka. Yeah, that's soybean. Sorry. Yeah. So for phenotyping, we're moving. Like I think most of the programs now are starting to implement the use of barcodes. EIB sent us some handhelds, so we're moving away from use of paper. We've got another ticket system installed at IITA Ibadan already, is that better? Okay. So we have another ticket system already installed at Ibadan. We are looking to do the same for Ikene and I think Pulsak as well, and Amir and Venetius are looking into that. In terms of adoption of the barcodes, I think it varies across crops, but in most cases they have done that, and it varies across the hubs. But we're looking to standardize this across all the hubs and crops. Next slide. So how is this going to work in terms of processes for requesting? So we spoke about that, but we're looking to have a farm management program in place where you actually, the breeders will put in a request through a portal, and then we match the resources that we have on the request in terms of resources in terms of land, people, and then have the planning and scheduling period where we all get together. Like I said, everybody should get involved before we move to executing the trials in the field. And then phenotyping and data processing, which will be subjected to quality assurance before we send the results to the breeders. Next slide. So I spoke initially about following the crop calendars. This is a crop calendar that the Cassava group has developed. You're aware of this. And what we're trying to do is to also sort of align breeding operations with the crop calendar. So the crop cycle there, we will know at what stage should we go in for weed management, when should we be having meetings to prepare for the season. So this is also another good thing that we're doing, moving in the right direction. Now, when I prepared this slide, it's an old one. We didn't have the initiatives already approved. So, but the idea was that as we transition to the one integrated organogram, is that we'll be pulling the funds from across all the programs that we'll be using for operations. But for now, what's happening is that ABI, which is Accelerated Breeding Initiative, is getting funding, and then since we'll be doing work on their behalf, there will be a chargeback, and that's where we'll be getting some of the money that we'll be using for operations and to pay staff and for maintaining equipment. That we had that discussion regarding the NAS this morning. So this is a model that we will be relying on. We are still working with human resources and finance to have a better understanding of the cost and what we're trying to do can be supported. So what's going to change with the network for enabling tools and shared services? Of course, there will be a new breeding operation structure. Some of the operations will be outsourced, like things like genotyping. There'll be we're hoping that we can be one of the center of excellence in terms of some of the operations, and there'll be, of course, establish a strong relationship with the NAREs, and this is happening like in Uganda, where we are co-located with what are they called, Venetius, with the NAS there. Yeah. So we are co-located. We already starting to work together, and part of this is EIB is buying some equipment that we'll be sharing. But I think that's a doorway for us to start cooperating and working together. And then all the operational budgets will be fully costed. Of course, I spoke about continuous improvement. That's going to be part and parcel of what we are doing, and all the operations will be mechanized and automated. And we're going to break down, of course, the stovepipes among the different crops, and also looking to consolidate the data and just have a stronger link among the different programs and the research farm unit and operations. Next slide. So what's going to be the impact of this on breeding? The overarching goal for John's team is that they can accelerate genetic gain. So we think that by streamlining operations, we're going to improve things like selection accuracy through improving efficiency with better experimental design and layout, improving agronomic practices in the fields, using SOPs to standardize operations, improve the accuracy of the data that we are sending to the breeders, and by so doing will be at least impacting cycle times. And the breeders, of course, like I said, they'll be more focused on doing what they're supposed to do, and also provide career paths for the staff. That's it. Thank you. Skip those. Yeah. Thanks. No, just skip everything. So thank you. Any questions? Oh.
So thank you, Alec. Do we have any questions on the use of IDTs or integrating or adopting the IDT system within IITA, for example, or their approach?
Alec, do you think it's fair to have the quality assurance under the operation management, or supposed to be in the breeder side? Because you are doing your own job and you have your own team to assure the quality of your own operation. Don't you think so? The quality assurance is supposed to be made by breeder team or by the breeder management?
Yeah, and you're right, but we should still retain some aspects of quality assurance internally anyway within operations. You're right. I think to get a different view, we would probably need to have people coming from the breeding side to come and. But we can is something that still is still in the process of developing. So we can work out the details of how we do that. We go about QA.
So do you think the breeding team has time to go to the field to make this quality check about operation? Because they do the quality check for phenotyping, right? This is properly done.
Yeah.
But about the operation, they usually don't do it, right?
Yeah.
Do you think they have team and people and budget to do that?
Yeah. Well, but also in a way they will be by default they will be involved in QA, right? Because they'll be visiting the field, so they'll be giving us feedback in terms of what we are lacking, where we are not doing our job, and that's part of that continuous improvement, where it's a loop, right? To get feedback, to make improvement. So I don't expect the first year we start doing this that the results will be high quality. There will be some gaps because there will be a learning curve. But when we're getting feedback from the breeders, I think we have an opportunity to make some improvements.
Looking at the issue of storage.
Yes.
Do you intend to come up with a seed retention protocol guideline across all crops, or it will be just a generic one?
I think it will have to be, because of course cassava, maize, they have different needs, so the protocols will be different depending on which crop we are working with. Like maybe for cowpeas and soybean, it might be similar, right? But when we are writing the SOPs, they will also be specific to the crops as well. Yeah. So. Any other questions?
So my question is this, that these initiatives need to be integrated one way or the other within your instructions, and you basically displayed how the organogram is going to change or shift. So what challenges do you perceive, okay, for this type of shift, and how long do you think that this process could take for you to be able to actually rely 100% on the shared services, the initiatives, and the different, let's say, sub initiatives that are involved?
Yeah. There is a slew of challenges that I anticipate us to face, right? One, of course, is funding. For us to be able to affect that, we're going to have a reliable source of funding, right? Like we've been promising the breeders we're going to do this like the last year, but we couldn't move ahead because one, we don't have the equipment. Like when we're saying we're going to start mechanizing the operations, we don't have the funding yet. And then on top of that, there is also the resistance, I think, from the breeders as well. You have to remember that they are giving up some form of control. So there's going to be a bit of resistance, but we just have to soldier on. And then, of course, the biggest one will be the learning curve from the people that we, not maybe technically, but just the learning curve in terms of working together or working across crops. So we anticipate that this is not something that is going to be effective in the first 1 or 2 years. It's a 5-year plan, right? It has to be. So if you look at, say, EiB, it took them a while to get to where they are. It wasn't something that happened overnight. So, yeah.
Yeah, but for example, with respect to assets, for example.
Yeah.
Okay, so how would be, since most of the assets are under the possession of breeding programs?
Yeah.
Okay, or under the jurisdiction of breeding programs per
Yeah,
se.
yeah.
So how do you see the merging of these assets within the farm operations?
I think that's where like John comes in. I think now, and that makes my job easier in that case, because since the programs are now under, John, under John, it's a question of John dictating that. Well,
so maybe John
can answer that as well. Yeah. So, and I think we're working on that, pulling the resources together. Like if you go to the research farm unit, the yard there, you're going to see a lot of pieces of equipment. It's stored there, but it doesn't belong to Wilson's team, and it's been sitting there for a long time. Some of them don't come to actually claim. Once the project ends, the equipment just sits there, and there's nothing we can do about it because management, of course, has to come in assets and the disposal of the assets and things like that. So, yeah, John.
Yeah, maybe it's covered it all. It's part of the resistance also, we include the assets, of course. But the moment we move the teams to central operations, I don't see how one can hold on to assets. Because in most cases, some of those assets, when the project expires, they're supposed to move to central pool. So I think we'll take that opportunity to say these activities have moved this way, so all the assets that belong to that will go down.
Because it moves to the point of sustainability, which is something that we are stressing upon, especially right now with the different investments, with the new projects like the Crop and Hunger Fund, for example. Okay, so we want to make the new assets or the new coming assets, or even for that matter, the old assets that are there need to be integrated under one umbrella so that we can assure certain sustainability, we can provide a long life, higher efficiency, even having pieces, for example, of assets or equipment just lying there without, any support or any not being attended to. Okay, so you might as well make use of it. So is that, for example, how would that be integrated? Okay, that would be quite interesting, and to see how things would be managed with the breeding programs, but like differently, okay, than it was before.
But I think it's already starting to happen. The program starts calling Alec to say our borehole is broken down. Can you support us? So we already, like in East Africa, for example, in Zambia, we're already taking over most of the assets. And you see that some assets are sitting idle, say in Kano, we have land sitting idle. So as Alec moves in to teach those breeders how to use it, he takes over. So it's something that I think we can easily do now. Yeah, because the lead senior breeders are already buying into centralization, including maize and cassava, which are our largest programs. Most of the assets are in agreement to move.
So yeah, you already have the buy-ins from the
Yes.
different breeding leaders or breeding program leaders.
Yes, we have it, but there's still some elements who are worried about quality, like he was saying. who still say if you take over striker screening, it's a specialized skill. How do you ensure that quality of that screening will remain in place? Questions are also a show. So there are two faces to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Thank you.
I would like to know, for example, how do you perceive this from NORA's perspective? Maybe, I don't know, Lenin, maybe CSIR people can help with that.
On our station, most of these activities or decisions are from management. So as you initiated, management will have to come together to take control over the new equipment. Because as pointed out by my colleague, when we come to the NAS, initially we used to work crop by crop. So most of the implements donated or supported by donors to particular crops. So even though they are not of use, it still belongs to that program or that crop, unless management takes a decision to shift it from one department or one breeding program to another. So as the new implements or equipment come in, it should come to management and we should centralize, as pointed out, so that now all machines, all equipment will come to workshop or farm management, that people will make requests to the management, then they will go and prepare the farm or give services to the various breeding programs. I think this is the change that is required at the NAS so that we can benefit from most of this. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think from my experience with the national programs, we would need a lot in terms of lobbying. And this lobbying has to be at the highest level in terms of management. By default, national programs, they have a bureaucratic system, which when you want to go through it, you have to lobby at the highest level. So I think in terms of centralizing, it would need the buy-in first from the management, and then it cascades down. And I don't see any problem if it comes from the top going down. The other way around, it will never work. So definitely need, even for EIB, be it CGI partners that are working there, to also try to pave the way for this lobbying such that it works.
Yeah, I mean, oh, okay.
Can you hear me, Ahmed? Yeah. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Okay, yeah. So I want to comment on this from the what Lenny said, and especially in the West Africa, on thinking on these crop to end hunger investment. We had an agreement, or it's not really still in this as in the format of a contract signed, but at least this concept has been presented both to to CIR and SARI. So this was or having a farm management committee and or have more centralized instead of this equipment to this program or that program. So we, at least in this crop to end hunger, what is in the scope of this in West Africa. Lenny, feel free to comment, but we, at least based on our discussions with centers, with the national programs, it seems that this is clear. Another important aspect when goes to Alex's presentation, and when Alex, and when you mentioned that EiB took long to establish. The first thing that EIRI, and you have the chance to talk today with Sharifa, one of the first things that EIRI or implemented to facilitate this structure is the full cost recovery system, or really or defining the fee for each individual tasks, and which would be the tasks that these or operational group could offer, and the fee for that could help each individual breeding program to plan for activities, and of course later pay for that activity. Anyway, so I'm just saying that this is an important step that you need to consider, and maybe it will be one of the things that you can discuss after these sessions or later today. Yeah. Thanks, Amit.
Just if you, I would be curious just to find out from the colleagues like Peter and Teresa, what do they perceive to be the biggest challenge in transitioning to the new structure?
Well, from the Cassava unit point of view, I do not think we're going to have a challenge. Why? My line manager has been telling us about this since 2020, that we're going to have a transition to 1CG, and it looks like all our trials will be conducted at central level. And then before you even came in mind by the head of that unit.
Yeah.
So to us, it's not a real challenge. And then IITA generally is not a major problem, because invest in equipment, for example. No breeding units own any equipment. For example, you buy irrigation pipes, but send it over to the farm office, because when they need something, you say we need to invest. They may not have the fund to do it. Then you need to control. That will be the system within the IITA here. So it's not majorly that I think you need to do, and once it comes from the institute, then to come from this, then take effect. Although there will be pockets of, but that is very minimal. When you go to have just maybe 1 out of 10 sign that when he or she find out that he just the way, then we will not have a choice but to take him up.
Yeah,
that is what I say.
I don't see any much challenge in achieving this. Resources management and utilization. Yam and Cassava, we are like sisters. Like if we don't have something, we can actually go and ask from them. It could be some to collect weather data, all those small temperature readers. What do you call them again? So actually, before. So I think if we actually achieve this for resources management, for resources management as well, and we can achieve better.
That's good to know.
Said earlier, all you have the RFU were bought actually by the Cassava unit.
Yeah.
But even when it is bought by a unit, centralized with the farm office. Thank you.
Well, I want to say authoritatively that there are some people that have personal attachment to their equipment as if it's personal. You see, some of them control vehicles and they are not ready to release it. Some of them, scientific equipment, it's a no-no. So it has to be institutional. That at the end of this project, all the project equipment goes back to its. I don't want to be personal about it, but I can give you examples over a long period of time. Dr. Menkir is known to buy irrigation material to assist the farm for Ibadan or for Ikene. He buys it on his project and is deposited on the farm. But I know some other negative examples. Thank you.
Thank you. Good.
I think we all share your sentiments. I don't like to share my toys as well. So.